When my cousin, let's call her Natalie, first called, it was such a normal request. Like, hey, can you watch my dog, Buster, for a few days? I've got this quick trip, super last minute, you know how it goes. I said sure, no problem, happy to help. I even cleared my schedule a bit. But when I pulled up to her house in Kansas City that Thursday afternoon, there was no dog. Just her two kids, Chloe and Leo, standing on the porch with these beat-up grocery bags, looking absolutely lost. They just stared at me for a full 10 seconds, Chloe clutching this ratty stuffed elephant, missing an ear, and Leo with chocolate smeared on his face, fresh tear tracks cutting through it. They looked utterly exhausted. Those bags were just crammed with random clothes. I could see mismatched socks, a heavy winter coat, even though it was July and scorching, and some crumpled pajamas. Chloe, she's 8, pointed at the empty driveway when I asked where Natalie was. She explained that their mom had left that morning, promising I was coming to watch them. They'd been standing on the porch since noon. It was almost 3. My stomach just plummeted. This wasn't dog-sitting. This was something else entirely. I pulled out my phone and called Natalie immediately. Her cheerful voicemail played, all bubbly, promising a callback. I tried again. Same thing. The kids were swaying, just about to drop from fatigue. Leo's grocery bag had a hole, and clothes were starting to spill out onto the porch. I couldn't leave them out there, like abandoned packages. I unlocked Natalie's front door with the spare key she'd given me for emergencies and got them inside. The house hit me like a physical blow. The dishes in the sink? Fuzzy with mold. Laundry was piled on every surface, chairs, tables, even the stairs. Mail, chaotic stacks of it, covered the kitchen counter. Final notice bills sat unopened next to empty pizza boxes and wine bottles. The smell was just overwhelming. Spoiled food, dirty clothes, and this other odor I couldn't quite place. I found a crumbled note on the kitchen table, in Natalie's distinct, messy handwriting, emergency work trip, back Sunday. Thanks for helping. It was scrawled on the back of a credit card statement. I couldn't help but notice the balance, $4,047 over the limit. I called Natalie's work right away, hoping for some clarification about this emergency. The receptionist sounded genuinely confused. Natalie Tucker? Oh, she requested vacation time last Monday. Submitted the paperwork herself. She won't be back until next Thursday at the earliest. My hands started shaking. Natalie had planned this whole deception for over a week. I hung up and just stared at Chloe and Leo. Chloe was methodically opening kitchen cabinets, looking for something edible. The pantry held only stale cereal, expired crackers, and condiment packets from fast food places. Leo was still sitting exactly where I'd left him, clutching his bag of mismatched clothes like a security blanket. The refrigerator was practically empty. Spoiled milk, leftover Chinese food growing fur, half a bottle of ketchup. These kids had been living like this for who knows how long. I loaded them into my car and drove to the nearest grocery store. Chloe helped me pick out real food, bread, fresh milk, fruit, frozen meals that wouldn't require advanced cooking skills. The total was $67.23. I paid with my own credit card, trying not to think about Natalie's maxed-out statement. Back at the house, I made proper peanut butter sandwiches while the kids sat at the kitchen table. Leo swung his legs, humming quietly. Chloe watched me with these careful, evaluating eyes. Natalie had always been the fun cousin. The one who showed up to family gatherings with expensive gifts and wild stories. The one who dated musicians and traveled spontaneously. But I'd never seen her house like this. Never realized how the chaos truly affected her children. Chloe finished her sandwich and started cleaning up without being asked. She rinsed plates and put them in the dishwasher like it was routine. An 8-year-old shouldn't be that responsible. My phone buzzed during dinner. A text from an unknown 602 area code. This is Natalie's new phone. Kids good. Be back soon. Having amazing time. I called the number immediately. It rang twice, then went to a generic voicemail. When I tried texting back, it showed as undelivered. The number was disconnected. Natalie was covering her tracks. That evening, I helped the kids shower in a bathtub that seriously needed cleaning. Leo's pajamas had holes in both knees. Chloe's were 2 sizes too small. I tucked them into beds with sheets that smelled like they hadn't been washed in weeks. Chloe asked if I was absolutely sure I wasn't leaving during the night. I promised I'd be downstairs on the couch if they needed anything. Mom says that sometimes, too, Chloe said, her voice small. The pain in her voice made me want to drive to Phoenix and drag Natalie home myself. I spent that night on Natalie's lumpy couch, jerking awake every time the old house creaked or settled. Chloe came downstairs twice. Once at midnight, once at 3 a.m, just to verify I was still there. The second time, she just stood in the doorway for a minute before going back upstairs without saying anything. Friday morning brought complete silence from Natalie. I tried calling her friends, but most of the numbers in her contacts were disconnected or belonged to people who hadn't heard from her in months. The few who did answer painted a concerning picture. Natalie had been asking to borrow money from everyone. She'd missed her last 3 jobs due to family emergencies that turned out to be hangovers or new boyfriends. One friend mentioned Natalie had been talking about this Phoenix trip for weeks, planning it like a military operation. Then I remembered Aunt Carol. Natalie's mom lived across town and usually kept tabs on Natalie's chaos. Aunt Carol answered on the 3rd ring, sounding tired and fed up. She confirmed that Natalie was indeed in Phoenix, posting photos and videos on social media constantly. She was with some guy she'd met on a dating app last month. She told me it was an emergency work trip, I said, trying to hold on to a shred of hope. Aunt Carol snorted. Emergency work trip to the casino floor. She's been planning this vacation for weeks. I asked how she knew so much detail. Because she asked me for money to pay for it. Said it was for the kids' school clothes. School didn't start for 6 weeks. I hung up and opened social media with shaking hands. Natalie's profile was a parade of Phoenix excess. A Camelback Mountain selfie from Thursday night. A group photo at a blackjack table Friday afternoon. Videos of her dancing at some club until 4 a.m. The latest post showed Natalie at an expensive steakhouse, holding up a glass of wine. The caption read, "When life gives you Phoenix, you take Phoenix. Living my truth, no regrets. Best week ever." It was time-stamped 20 minutes ago. I screenshot every single image and comment. The evidence was overwhelming. My cousin was living it up in Phoenix while her children ate peanut butter sandwiches and asked when mommy was coming home. I scrolled deeper. Photos from earlier in the week showed Natalie shopping at expensive stores, getting her nails done, posing by hotel pools. She'd been documenting her entire Phoenix adventure, completely ignoring her children's existence. The comments on her posts made my blood boil. Friends cheering her on, telling her she deserved this, calling her a queen for living her best life. Nobody asked about Chloe and Leo. I called Natalie using my work phone, hoping she might answer an unfamiliar number. A man picked up after several rings. His voice was confused and slightly slurred. "Yeah, who's this?" "I need to speak to Natalie Tucker." "Natalie, hang on." Background noise flooded the line, slot machines, loud laughter, music pumping. I could hear him asking someone if they knew Natalie. A woman's voice in the background, definitely not Natalie, laughed and said something I couldn't make out. Finally, Natalie's voice came through. She sounded drunk and artificially happy. "Hey, how are my babies doing? When are you coming home?" "Home? Oh, soon. This place is absolutely incredible. You should see this hotel room. The kids miss you, Natalie. They miss me? I've only been gone like 2 days, though. It's been 4 days. You said you'd be back Sunday. Did I say Sunday? Huh? Well, you know how it is. Plans change when you're having the time of your life. She giggled like she'd made a hilarious joke. Natalie, your children think you might not be coming back. Don't be so dramatic. Tell them mommy's having fun and she'll see them super soon. The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately. The number was blocked. Saturday felt like the longest day of my life. The kids asked about their mom every couple hours. I was running out of creative explanations. Chloe was definitely getting suspicious. She caught me checking my phone obsessively and overheard parts of my phone calls. Leo was starting to regress. He'd wet the bed Friday night, something Chloe quietly told me he hadn't done in over a year. That evening, Chloe cornered me in the kitchen while Leo was distracted by cartoons. She's not coming back Sunday, is she? I couldn't lie to an 8-year-old anymore. Her eyes were too knowing, too tired. I told her honestly that I didn't think Natalie would be back Sunday. Chloe's face crumpled for exactly 3 seconds before she pulled herself together. She was 8 years old and already an expert at managing disappointment. She said Natalie had made the same promises about their dad before he left permanently. My heart shattered. Natalie's ex-husband had walked out 2 years ago after a massive fight about money and responsibility. He'd hugged the kids goodbye and promised he'd see them real soon. Chloe had been 6, but she remembered every detail of that abandonment. Now, she was watching it happen again. Sunday arrived with deafening silence from Natalie. I took the kids to a local park, bought them ice cream from a truck, and tried to manufacture normal childhood moments. But Leo kept asking when mommy was coming home, and my answers were getting more strained and less believable. That evening, I made the phone call I'd been dreading. The police non-emergency operator was professional, but immediately concerned when I explained the situation. A mother gone since Thursday morning with no real contact. 2 young children left with a relative who'd been deceived about the nature and duration of care needed. She said an officer would be dispatched within the hour. Officer Davis arrived at 7:30 sharp. She looked young, maybe early 30s, with intelligent eyes and a methodical approach to gathering information. She sat up at Natalie's kitchen table and pulled out a detailed incident report form. I walked her through everything chronologically: the Thursday afternoon phone call about dog sitting, arriving to find children instead of a pet, the lies about work emergencies, the Phoenix social media posts, the blocked phone numbers. Officer Davis photographed all the evidence on my phone, every social media post, every failed call log, every unanswered text message. This constitutes child abandonment under state law, she said, making notes. We're required to contact Child Protective Services immediately. I asked if I could just keep the kids until Natalie returned. Officer Davis explained that without legal guardianship, proper protocols had to be followed. They'd attempt to contact the mother first. If no response within 24 hours, emergency placement procedures would begin. She said kinship care was preferred when possible, meaning I might be able to keep Chloe and Leo temporarily, but everything had to go through official channels. That night, I systematically called every contact in Natalie's phone. Most numbers were disconnected or belonged to people who'd lost touch with her months ago. The few people I reached painted an increasingly disturbing picture of Natalie's recent behavior. Her brother, Daniel, in Denver, hadn't heard from her since Christmas. He said she called multiple times last year asking for emergency loans. Always for the kids, she'd claimed: school supplies, medical bills, food money. Daniel had sent money twice before realizing Natalie was probably lying about the emergencies. Her sister, Sarah, in Austin, said Natalie had called the previous week asking for a cash advance. When Sarah asked what for, Natalie claimed Chloe needed dental work. I made a mental note to check if Chloe actually needed dental work. Based on everything else, that was probably another lie. Natalie's college roommate, Melissa, hadn't spoken to her in 2 months, but she'd been following Natalie's social media posts about her amazing new relationship. The boyfriend was supposedly wealthy and generous, taking Natalie on expensive trips and buying her designer clothes. Melissa said Natalie had been bragging about landing a sugar daddy who would solve all her financial problems. Nobody I spoke with seemed surprised by Natalie's Phoenix disappearance. Several people mentioned her pattern of prioritizing new boyfriends over her children. That realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't Natalie's first time choosing herself over Chloe and Leo. This was just the first time she'd been caught. Monday morning brought another knock at the door. Ms. Peterson from Child Protective Services stood on the porch with a thick folder and a kind but tired expression. She was probably in her mid-40s with prematurely gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen too many cases like this one. Ms. Peterson conducted formal interviews with Chloe and Leo in Natalie's living room. She spoke to them separately in age-appropriate language, asking gentle questions about their home life. Chloe's answers were devastating in their matter-of-fact delivery. Yes, Mom sometimes left them alone at night when she went out with friends. Usually, she came back by morning, but sometimes not until the next afternoon. Yes, they'd been hungry before when there wasn't food in the house. Chloe had learned to make sandwiches and heat up soup in the microwave. Yes, Mom had forgotten to pick them up from school multiple times. Chloe knew to wait in the office until someone came. Leo's interview was shorter, but equally concerning. He mentioned making his own breakfast when Mommy was sleeping really hard. He talked about being scared when loud strangers came over late at night. Ms. Peterson took careful notes on everything and photographed the children's belongings. The grocery bags of clothes told their own story. Nothing matched, nothing fit properly, and essential items like underwear and socks were missing entirely. She asked me detailed questions about Natalie's history and my relationship with the family. I told her everything I knew, which I realized wasn't nearly enough. The missed school pickups that left kids waiting until 5 p.m. The utilities that got shut off regularly for non-payment. The parade of boyfriends who stayed over without consideration for the children. Natalie's pattern was becoming crystal clear. She consistently prioritized her own immediate desires over her children's basic needs. This Phoenix trip wasn't an aberration. It was the natural escalation of years of selfish parenting. Ms. Peterson took extensive photos of the living conditions, the empty refrigerator with spoiled food, the overflowing garbage that hadn't been taken out in weeks. The stack of unpaid bills threatening utility shutoffs. She documented the children's sleeping arrangements, beds with dirty sheets, clothes scattered everywhere. No evidence of bedtime routines or structure. "I'm recommending emergency kinship care placement with you," she said after completing her assessment. "But we need the mother to return immediately or face formal criminal charges." I called Aunt Carol again, hoping for Natalie's exact travel details. Aunt Carol had more information this time, and none of it was good news. Natalie's original flight home was supposed to be Sunday, but she changed it to Wednesday. Then Wednesday got pushed to Friday. Now, Aunt Carol wasn't sure when Natalie was actually returning. "The boyfriend keeps extending the trip," Aunt Carol explained. "Pays for everything, so Natalie just goes along with it." I asked if Aunt Carol had expressed any concern about the children. "I told her she needed to call you," she said, "but she told me, you are family, and family doesn't complain about helping out." Natalie had twisted this into my responsibility somehow. I checked social media again and immediately regretted it. Natalie had posted 6 new photos in the past 2 hours. A pool party with a group of strangers, everyone holding colorful drinks. Expensive dinner at a steakhouse, the menu prices visible in the background. Shopping bags from Gucci and Louis Vuitton piled on a hotel bed. The latest post showed Natalie getting a massage at some luxury spa. The caption read, "Vacation extended again. Sometimes you just have to say yes to life. Blessed living, my best life. No regrets. Cheers, Phoenix." The post was time-stamped 37 minutes ago. I screenshot every single image and comment thread, building a digital evidence file. My cousin was spending what looked like thousands of dollars on herself while her children ate stale cereal and asked when mommy was coming home. I forwarded everything to Officer Davis immediately. She called me back within 15 minutes. "We're issuing an arrest warrant," she said without preamble. "This is felony child abandonment. When she returns to Kansas City, she'll be taken into custody." I asked what would happen to Chloe and Leo. "Emergency custody hearing will be scheduled within 72 hours of her arrest. Given the circumstances, you'll likely be granted temporary guardianship." Tuesday morning brought another call, this time from Natalie's cousin, Brenda. Her tone was defensive and annoyed from the first word. Brenda explained that Natalie was upset about me overreacting to a simple family favor. I asked what family favor involves lying about dogs and disappearing for 6 days. Brenda made excuses. Natalie was going through a difficult time. This new boyfriend made her happy. She deserves some fun after years of struggling as a single mom. I pointed out that struggling single moms don't typically afford week-long Phoenix vacations. Brenda claimed the boyfriend was paying for everything. Natalie had finally found someone who treated her right. I asked about Chloe and Leo's treatment. Who was treating them right? Brenda got defensive. "Kids are resilient. They'll be fine. Natalie would never actually abandon her children because she loves them." I asked when Natalie was planning to return and demonstrate this love. "Tomorrow night, I think, or maybe Thursday. She's having such an incredible time." 6 days. Natalie had been gone 6 days and counting. Brenda told me I was making a big deal out of nothing before hanging up. Wednesday afternoon, my phone finally rang with Natalie's name on the screen. Her voice was sharp and angry. No longer the slurred party girl from earlier calls. She demanded to know why police were looking for her. I explained that abandoning children for nearly a week tends to attract law enforcement attention. Natalie insisted she'd left them with family, which wasn't abandonment. I listed her lies systematically. The non-existent dog, the fake work emergency, the broken promise to return Sunday, the blocked phone numbers. Natalie's excuse was that she needed a break from the stress of single motherhood. I pointed out that needing a break doesn't justify tricking family members and disappearing without contact. Natalie claimed her phone had died, which made it impossible to call. I mentioned her numerous social media posts, all time-stamped and geotagged from various Phoenix locations. Silence on her end. "I'll be home tonight," she finally said. "There's a warrant for your arrest." "That's ridiculous. I'll straighten this out when I get back." "You should have straightened it out before you left." The line went dead. That evening, Natalie appeared at her front door exactly when she'd promised. For once in her life, she was punctual. She looked like she'd spent a week at an expensive spa, fresh tan, professional manicure, hair styled perfectly. Her clothes were new and obviously expensive. She walked into her own house like she'd been gone for an hour instead of 6 days. Leo ran to her immediately, desperate for maternal attention. Natalie scooped him up and spun him around, acting delighted to see him. Chloe hung back near the stairs, watching the reunion with careful eyes. Natalie gushed about how much she'd missed them, how she'd thought about them constantly, how sorry she was that work had kept her away so long. Every word was a performance. I stepped forward and informed her we needed to talk privately. Natalie looked genuinely confused about what there was to discuss. She was home now. Crisis over. I began listing her deceptions methodically: the dog that never existed, the work emergency that was actually a vacation, the Sunday return that became Wednesday that became whenever she felt like it. Natalie's expression shifted from confusion to annoyance. She informed me that she didn't owe explanations about how she chose to parent her children. Officer Davis chose that exact moment to knock on the front door. Natalie's face went paper white when she saw the police uniform through the window. Officer Davis identified herself and informed Natalie she was under arrest for felony child abandonment. Natalie protested that the charge was ridiculous. She'd only been gone for a few days on a work trip. 6 days, Officer Davis corrected, for personal travel, leaving minor children with a relative who was deceived about the duration and nature of care required. The handcuffs made a sharp clicking sound, and the sudden silence. I quickly directed Chloe and Leo to go upstairs before they could witness their mother being arrested. Chloe grabbed Leo's hand and pulled him away, but not before Leo asked loudly why the police lady was putting jewelry on Mommy's wrists. Natalie turned on me as Officer Davis read her Miranda rights. She hissed that this was entirely my fault. I'd ruined her first vacation in years over a simple misunderstanding. I told her she'd ruined her children's sense of security over a gambling trip. Natalie couldn't understand the distinction. She'd taken a vacation. She deserved some fun. What was criminal about that? Officer Davis looked up from her paperwork. Leaving children without proper arrangements is a felony in the state, ma'am. Natalie spent that night in the county detention center. I stayed at her house with Chloe and Leo, trying to create some semblance of stability. Chloe helped me clean the kitchen while Leo played with toys we'd found buried under laundry piles. She worked without complaining. Like household maintenance was already her job. I asked how often she helped with housework. When Mom's tired, Chloe said diplomatically. I was learning that Chloe spoke in careful codes. When Mom's tired probably meant when Mom's hungover or when Mom's avoiding responsibility. Leo found a photo album buried under magazines and brought it to me. Pictures of Natalie holding baby Chloe. Natalie teaching toddler Leo to walk. Family Christmas mornings from better times. Natalie had been a good mom once, or at least she'd tried to be. But something had shifted after her divorce. The fun-loving spontaneity had curdled into selfish irresponsibility. Chloe looked at the photos with something like sadness. She used to make pancakes on Sundays, Chloe said quietly. What happened to Sunday pancakes? She started staying out late on Saturday nights. Another carefully coded explanation. Saturday nights out had become Sunday morning hangovers. I made pancakes that Sunday morning. Chloe helped measure ingredients while Leo set the table with mismatched plates. Neither child mentioned that their mother was sitting in jail. Natalie's arraignment was scheduled for Monday morning. I sat in the back of the courtroom with Aunt Carol, who looked ashamed and exhausted. Aunt Carol whispered that she tried to warn Natalie about her priorities multiple times. Natalie always promised to do better, then found new ways to mess up. The judge was middle-aged and stern, with no patience for excuses. He reviewed the case file with obvious disapproval. 6 days without contact, deceptive arrangements with family, children left in inadequate conditions. Natalie's overworked public defender tried to frame it as a misunderstanding between family members. The judge wasn't buying that explanation. Misunderstandings don't involve blocking phone numbers and lying about work emergencies. He noted that the defendant had been posting extensively on social media during the alleged emergency work trip. Natalie's bail was set at $5,000. She couldn't pay it. When she tried to speak on her own behalf, the judge cut her off. He'd seen enough evidence of her priorities. Natalie called me from jail that afternoon, begging me to drop the charges. I explained that criminal charges weren't something I could just drop. This was beyond family drama now. Natalie promised she'd learned her lesson. She just needed one more chance to prove she could be a good mother. I asked what lesson specifically she'd learned. That I can't trust family to understand when I need help. Wrong lesson entirely. I told her that her children had needed her help for 6 days while she posted vacation photos. Natalie insisted that kids were resilient. They'd bounced back from this. I hung up and blocked her jail number. Aunt Carol bailed Natalie out Wednesday morning using money from her retirement account. Natalie looked haggard and angry when she appeared at her house that afternoon. She demanded her children back immediately, like they were packages she'd left for pickup. I explained that emergency custody didn't work like a dry cleaning service. There would be court hearings, evaluations, supervised visits. Ms. Peterson had walked me through the entire legal process. This would take months to resolve. Natalie couldn't comprehend why she couldn't just reclaim her kids and move on. She was their mother. That should be enough. I reminded her that mothers don't abandon their children for casino trips. Her anger cracked briefly, showing something desperate and scared underneath. She claimed she'd made one mistake. Everyone deserved forgiveness for one mistake. I told her she'd made dozens of mistakes. This was just the most public and dramatic one. Natalie looked at Chloe and Leo, who were staying close to my side like they'd imprinted on me. Leo gave her a tentative wave. Chloe remained stone-faced. Natalie tried to appeal directly to them, asking sweetly if they missed Mommy and wanted to come home. Leo nodded because he was 5 and missed his mom despite everything. Chloe stayed silent because she was 8 and had learned that missing someone doesn't mean trusting them. I informed Natalie that the kids would be staying with me until the formal custody hearing next month. A month? Natalie's voice went shrill. I was keeping them for an entire month over one mistake? I clarified that the judge would decide the timeline, not me. Natalie stormed out, slamming the door so hard that pictures rattled on the walls. The next few weeks established a routine that felt healthier than anything the kids had experienced in years. I enrolled them in a summer day camp near my apartment. Chloe thrived with structured activities and consistent mealtimes. Leo made friends and stopped asking daily when Mommy was coming home. I moved them into my spare bedroom, bought them new clothes that actually fit, and established bedtime routines that included baths and story time. Chloe blossomed with stability. She started laughing more, asking for help with things instead of trying to handle everything herself. Leo's bedwetting stopped. He began sleeping through the night without checking to make sure I was still there. Natalie's supervised visits were scheduled for twice a week at the family court center. She showed up sporadically, usually late, often with elaborate gifts that seemed designed more for her own guilt relief than the children's actual interests. She promised Peter Piper pizza trips during one visit, a new puppy during another, a bigger house where they could each have their own room. Ms. Peterson took notes on every unrealistic promise and every missed appointment. After the 4th visit, Chloe asked privately if she had to keep seeing Natalie. She's your mom, I know, but she makes promises she never keeps. Chloe listed examples: the promised trip to Worlds of Fun that got cancelled for a date. The puppy that never materialized. The new bike that was always next week. I realized Chloe had been managing her own and Leo's expectations for years, protecting them both from constant disappointment. An 8-year-old shouldn't have to be the family's reality check. The formal custody hearing was scheduled for early September. Natalie's behavior in the weeks leading up to it became increasingly erratic. She missed 3 supervised visits without calling to cancel. When she did show up, she seemed distracted and agitated, checking her phone constantly. Ms. Peterson documented every missed appointment and concerning behavior. 2 weeks before the hearing, Natalie's boyfriend apparently dumped her. She called me sobbing, asking if she could see the kids outside the supervised visit schedule. I referred her to Ms. Peterson and her lawyer. Natalie showed up drunk to the next supervised visit. Ms. Peterson ended the session after 10 minutes and noted the incident in her report. The custody hearing arrived on a Tuesday morning in early September. Natalie was 23 minutes late, wearing wrinkled clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. Her public defender had managed to gather some character references, but they were thin and unconvincing. Friends who barely knew her parenting style, former coworkers who hadn't seen her in months. My lawyer presented a thick folder of documentation: the original abandonment report, police photos, CPS evaluations, missed visit logs, social media evidence. The judge reviewed everything with increasing concern. When given a chance to speak, Natalie stood and delivered a tearful monologue about loving her children and making one terrible mistake in a moment of weakness. She claimed she'd been overwhelmed by single parenthood and made a poor decision. She'd learned from her errors and was committed to being a better mother. The judge looked unimpressed. He'd clearly heard similar speeches before. He noted the court's concern about Natalie's pattern of behavior, the documented abandonment, the deceptive arrangements, the lack of accountability, the missupervised visits. When Natalie tried to interrupt with more promises, the judge raised his hand. He referenced the CPS reports showing that the children felt safer and more secure in their current placement. The judge awarded me temporary custody for 6 months with a review scheduled for March. Natalie would be allowed supervised visits every other weekend, contingent on her completing parenting classes and maintaining stable housing and employment. Natalie shouted as we left the courtroom. She accused me of stealing her children and destroying her family. I reminded her that she'd abandoned her children first. That evening, I helped Chloe and Leo arrange their belongings in what was now officially their bedroom in my apartment. Chloe organized her few books by color on the shelf I'd bought. Leo lined up his toy cars in careful rows on his new dresser. The room was small, but clean and safe. Both kids had their own beds with fresh sheets. Nightlights plugged into the walls cast gentle glows. "Are we staying here forever?" Leo asked while I helped him hang up his clothes. "For now. Is that okay with you?" He nodded vigorously and hugged my leg. Chloe was quieter, but seemed relieved. She'd stopped flinching when doors slammed or phones rang unexpectedly. The supervised visits became increasingly painful to watch. Natalie would arrive late and leave early, spending the limited time making elaborate promises she couldn't keep. She promised Leo a birthday party at Peter Piper Pizza. His birthday had passed 2 months earlier. She promised Chloe a shopping trip for school clothes, then forgot that school had already started. Ms. Peterson documented every unrealistic commitment and broken promise. Halloween approached, and Natalie missed the scheduled visit entirely. She called the next day, claiming she'd had the flu. I checked her social media. She'd posted photos from a Halloween party the same night, dressed as a Phoenix showgirl. Leo's birthday came in November. Natalie missed that supervised visit, too, claiming work wouldn't let her take time off. According to her social media, she'd spent the day at a spa with girlfriends. Leo waited in the family court center for 2 hours before Ms. Peterson gently explained that his mom wasn't coming. He cried for the first time since the Phoenix trip. December brought a recommendation from Ms. Peterson that Natalie's parental rights be terminated entirely. She's demonstrated no meaningful effort to address the issues that led to abandonment, Ms. Peterson explained during our meeting. The children have consistently expressed feeling safer and happier in your care. The termination hearing was scheduled for mid-December. Natalie received the court summons but didn't respond to calls from her lawyer or the court system. 3 days before the hearing, she finally called me directly. "You can't take my kids away." "I'm not taking them. You gave them away when you chose Phoenix over responsibility." "I made one mistake." "You've made dozens of mistakes. This was just the most public one." Natalie begged me to speak to the judge on her behalf. She promised she was getting her life together. She had a new job, a new apartment in the works. I asked for proof of employment. She couldn't provide any. I asked for her current address. She was staying with friends but promised to find her own place soon. Same old Natalie. Big promises, no follow-through. The termination hearing arrived on a cold Tuesday in December. Chloe wore her best dress, a blue one I bought her for school pictures. Leo brought his stuffed elephant for moral support. Natalie didn't show up. Her public defender filed a motion claiming she was in court-ordered rehabilitation. When the judge asked for documentation, the lawyer admitted he had none. The judge reviewed the case file one final time. 6 months of missed visits, broken promises, and zero progress toward stability. He terminated Natalie's parental rights at 10:47 a.m. The kids were quiet during the drive home from the family court center. Chloe held Leo's hand in the back seat, both of them processing what had just happened. That afternoon, Leo asked what he should call me now that the judge had said I was officially their guardian. Chloe suggested Aunt Mom, which made Leo dissolve into giggles. I told him they could call me whatever felt comfortable. Christmas that year was the first one where presents actually appeared under the tree on Christmas morning. Chloe helped me wrap Leo's gifts, and Leo made handmade cards for everyone he could think of. We established traditions: pancakes on Saturday mornings, movie nights on Fridays, homework time after dinner with music playing softly. Chloe joined the school's soccer team and discovered she was naturally athletic. Leo started taking swimming lessons and could float independently within a month. They stopped asking about Natalie entirely. January brought a card from Natalie with no return address. The postmark showed Atlanta, Georgia. The card contained a generic message about getting her life together and loving them both. No specific apologies, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. Chloe read it carefully, then folded it and threw it in the kitchen trash without showing Leo. I started formal adoption proceedings in February. Chloe was old enough to understand what legal adoption meant. She asked if it meant Natalie could never take them away again. I told her that's exactly what it meant. The adoption process required background checks, home studies, and interviews with court-appointed advocates. Ms. Peterson handled our case and made it clear that this was a formality. The children had been thriving in my care for months. Chloe's grades had improved dramatically. She'd gone from barely passing to honor roll in just 4 months. Leo was reading above grade level and had made the school soccer team despite being younger than most players. The home study went smoothly. The court advocate spent 3 hours at my apartment, interviewing the kids separately and observing our family dynamics. Chloe showed her the chore chart we created together. Leo demonstrated how he helped set the table for dinner every night. Both children expressed clearly that they wanted to stay with me permanently. The advocate asked Chloe if she missed her birth mother. Sometimes, Chloe said, but I don't miss being scared all the time. Leo was more direct. He told the advocate that I made better sandwiches and never forgot to pick him up from school. The adoption was finalized on a sunny Friday in June. Chloe and Leo got to pick new middle names as part of the legal process. Chloe chose Grace, after her favorite teacher. Leo chose Dinosaur because he was 6 and dinosaurs were awesome. The judge laughed and approved both choices officially. We celebrated at the ice cream shop where I'd taken them that first terrible weekend when Natalie had disappeared. Chloe ordered mint chocolate chip, like always. Leo got rainbow sherbet with extra sprinkles. The irony wasn't lost on me. We were celebrating becoming a real family at the same place where I'd tried to distract them from their mother's abandonment. Summer passed in a blur of swimming lessons, library visits, and backyard barbecues. Chloe learned to dive off the high board. Leo mastered riding his bike without training wheels. August brought school shopping that didn't involve asking relatives for money or selling belongings to afford supplies. Chloe picked out a purple backpack and matching lunchbox. Leo chose superhero everything: backpack, folder, pencils, erasers. I realized this was the first time they'd started a school year with everything they needed. Bought new instead of borrowed or secondhand. First day of school photos showed 2 confident, happy children. Chloe in her new dress, hair braided perfectly. Leo grinning with his missing front tooth and superhero backpack. A year had passed since that awful Thursday, and looking at Chloe and Leo now, you'd never know how close they came to being forgotten. They had friends, hobbies, and routines that made them feel safe. More importantly, they laughed freely, like kids should. Natalie may have given birth to them, but she gave me the greatest responsibility and privilege of my life. I didn't just step in for a few days. I became the person they could count on. Some families are born by blood, but others are built through choice and commitment. And when I look at those kids, I know we became a real family the moment I opened that front door. Isn't it wild how something that starts so small can completely reshape your entire life?